The 1960s was a decade that shaped a generation. It was about change, rebellion, and innovation. The 60s had a hand in shaping everything from fashion and music to politics and technology. If you were lucky enough to live through it, you know just how unforgettable that time was. Here are 15 things that'll take you back to those iconic years. TV wasn't just something to pass the time in the 60s, it was an event. Families would crowd around the one TV in the living room to watch their favorite shows. With only a few channels to choose from, you had to plan ahead if you wanted to catch your favorite program. There was no binging, no rewinding. If you missed the start, tough luck. In the 60s, getting lost in a new topic meant diving into a good book or asking an expert. The internet didn't exist, so if you were curious about something, you had to find a way to figure it out in the old-fashioned way. Want to know how to? Bake a cake. You had to ask mom or flip through a cookbook. No instant answers, but that made discoveries feel so much more personal. Long before Spotify came into this world, the radio was the only true source of connection. Kids would sit with a transistor radio and eagerly wait for the next episode of a drama series. The late-night radio DJ was like a close friend who kept you company, and the Top 40 Countdown became an exciting weekly event. The 60s were the decade of bold decor. Lava lamps were not just some funky decor items, these were a symbol of the counterculture movement. They were mesmerizing to watch as the wax slowly oozed through the colored liquid, and they became a centerpiece of cool rooms. It wasn't just the lamps, the furniture, the psychedelic prints, and the peace symbols that made the 60s home decor unforgettable. The Beatles weren't just a band, they were the heart of the 60s. If you brought up the Beatles, you'd get into a passionate debate about their best songs, albums, and moments, but their impact went way beyond music. When they landed in America in 1964, it was like the whole world suddenly got a little cooler. And being a fan felt like being part of something huge, a global shift in culture and style. In the 60s, the family car wasn't just how you got from point A to point B, it was your gateway to freedom. Road trips across the country were a big part of growing up, and the car became your home base for all kinds of adventures. Cars like the Ford Mustang and Chevrolet Camaro were badges of cool, and driving one made you feel like you were living the rock star life. Before Netflix and chill was invented, there was the drive-in movie. You'd load the car with blankets and snacks, roll down the windows, and settle in for a movie under the stars or clouds, depending on your luck. The smell of fresh popcorn in the air, the cool night breeze, and the buzz of being out in the open with friends or family made it feel like a special event. The school dance in the 60s was a huge deal for kids. You'd spend weeks picking out the perfect outfit, practicing your best dance moves, and building up the nerve to ask someone to dance that almost felt like taking an exam. With Motown hits and the Beach Boys blasting through the speakers, the music made everything feel electric. Every move you made seemed like the start of something new and exciting. For all the people growing up in the 60s, witnessing the civil rights movement unfold was an awakening. All news of protests, sit-ins, and historic speeches like Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous "I Have a Dream" were more than just headlines. They were moments of transformation. Many of the values we hold today about equality and justice took root during these defining years. In the golden age of Hollywood, glamour wasn't just a look, it was a lifestyle, and no one embodied it quite like Marilyn Monroe. With her radiant smile, timeless beauty, and effortless charm, she captivated the world, not through filters or algorithms, but through presence. The 1960s were filled with icons like her, stars who seemed almost mythical, shimmering above the rest of us like constellations on a movie screen. This image captures everything that era stood for: the elegance, the poise, and the magic of old Hollywood. Fans didn't just admire stars like Marilyn, Audrey Hepburn, or James Dean, they worshipped them. Posters lined bedroom walls, glossy magazine clippings were carefully saved, and every red carpet moment felt like an event. Before social media and 24/7's coverage, spotting your favorite celebrity meant something. They were mysterious, distant, yet deeply adored. These stars weren't overexposed, they were unforgettable, and even decades later, their images still glow with the same stardust that once lit up cinema's golden era, because true glamour never fades, it just becomes legend. In the 1960s, school wasn't just about textbooks and test scores. It was about shaping who you were becoming. Walking to class in neatly pressed uniforms, like these two young girls captured in this photo, wasn't just about appearance. It was a lesson in pride, discipline, and identity. Education back then was a full experience. You learned math, grammar, and history, but also respect, courtesy, and responsibility. Teachers didn't just teach, they mentored, they guided students through life's early challenges, holding them to high standards, not just in academics, but in character. There was no shortcut to good behavior. It was modeled, expected, and instilled with care. And when the bell rang for recess, it wasn't just a break, it was your first real taste of freedom, a chance to stretch your legs, make friends, and learn social rules that no chalkboard could ever teach. School in the 60s helped raise students not just to be smart, but to be good people. Before smartphones fit in our pockets and speed dial was just a tap away, there was the rotary phone, sturdy, loud, and wonderfully slow. In the 1960s, this bright, clunky device sat proudly on kitchen counters and hallway tables, ready for every important call, as long as you had the patience. Dialing wasn't instant. You'd insert your finger, spin the wheel, and wait for it to return with a satisfying click, click, click before moving to the next number. Heaven forbid you messed up near the end, you'd have to start over from the beginning. It wasn't just communication, it was commitment and privacy, practically non-existent. The cord tethered you to a 3-foot radius, and if someone else in the house needed to use the line, your conversation was either cut short or overheard. Yet somehow, those phone calls felt more personal, more meaningful. The rotary phone wasn't just a tool, it was a ritual, and for many, it still holds a place in memory that no app ever could. The fashion in the 60s was a game changer. Young people wore bold prints, miniskirts, and bell-bottom pants. These pants were super hit back then. It was a time when self-expression was everything, and people showed it through their clothes. The mod style, with its clean lines and geometric patterns, gave off a modern vibe. The 60s were an exciting time with the US and the Soviet Union racing to conquer space. They were literally fighting for it. Every time NASA launched a rocket, it felt like a big win for everyone. The moon landing in 1969 was a big moment in history. Families gathered around their TVs to watch Armstrong take his first steps on the moon. It wasn't just about science, it felt like we were finally seeing the future come to life. Before screens competed for attention and life sped up to a constant scroll, the 1960s were about something much more grounding, simple pleasures. This image of a quiet shopping street brings it all back. People walking slowly, chatting face-to-face, window shopping, without rush or distraction. There were no earbuds, no notifications, just the sounds of life unfolding in real time. A trip to the local store wasn't just an errand, it was a social moment. You greeted neighbors, exchanged stories, and truly saw one another. Evenings were spent on porches, sipping lemonade or waving at passersby. Kids played outside until the streetlights flickered on and families gathered around dinner tables instead of screens. There was time to breathe, to connect, to just be. The world may have been smaller, but the moments were bigger, and the joy simpler. Because sometimes the best memories come from the quietest days.